Jeff Lerner here, and in this video I'm going to basically be admitting to a mistake. And this is, I think, a huge part of being an entrepreneur, is wrestling with the fact that, frankly, we get things wrong more than we get things right. How we get things wrong and how we pivot out of getting things wrong and into, failing forward, so to speak, is ultimately the entirety of what we accomplish as an entrepreneur. If I try to boil all the water out of the pan of my success in business and say, what have I ever done right? It's just been not persisting at doing the wrong thing once I realize it, and then trying to figure out how to strategically shift into doing the right thing without, finding this right balance of respecting whatever it is that I have created in doing the wrong thing, whether it's people that are in place, or it's a system that I've assembled, or if it's a need or an opportunity in the market that I've identified, or, in other words, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Whatever good there is, keep it. Ditch the rest. Don't be attached to sunk cost. Don't fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy, which is this idea that, once you've invested something that you can't get back, it should no longer be a factor in your thinking about how you move forward. So let me share the first mistake, the first big mistake that I'm wrestling with right now and that I'm going to shift out of. And first of all, I want to give credit to a great entrepreneur, Alex Hormozi, and I have no stake in saying that, except that I watch his channel a lot, and he helps me think about where I'm going, with where I'm at in business, trying to get to like a 9-figure per year business level. I'm at a high 8-figure per year, and trying to crack that 9-figure threshold and really take it to the next level of creating billion-dollar enterprise value. It's a different game that I'm playing now that I've never played before. There's no school you can go to for it, and he's been somebody that's kind of helped me orient how I think about what I'm trying to do. And I watched a video of his yesterday that just gut punched me. It was like, okay, that's it. I got nowhere to hide. I have been making this mistake, and it's time to clean it up, and it's time to clean it up aggressively and decisively. And like I said, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In other words, figure out what's been good about the mistake and how to keep that, and how to, maybe reassign it in a way that's more congruent and more aligned with not persisting in the mistake. And I'll explain what I mean. Basically, the video I watched from him yesterday was about the power of attention. That as an entrepreneur, you have a limited amount of attention. And he compared it to like you have a jar of marbles, and you put a marble on your fitness, you put a marble on your family, you put a marble on your personal growth, you put a marble on your whatever, your poker night or whatever things you're into. And then you have most of the marbles you put on your business, assuming you're serious about growing it. That's usually what takes the most work. But ultimately, you only have so many marbles, and you might reach a point where you need to go back and pick up a few of the marbles and put them over here. And he really talked about how you hit a threshold in business where the way to succeed more is to focus, even to obsess on doing less. That's the big epiphany. That's what hit me. There have been a few things where I'm starting to feel fragmented in my energy, and most recently, I created one of those things for myself. It was like I almost in a moment of boredom, and this is what happens to entrepreneurs, right? We get these ideas, these whispers, and when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, it's really, really important to learn to listen to and trust those whispers. Those whispers are intuition, suggesting to you that there's an opportunity. And it's really, really important to listen to those whispers when you're starting out. That's the defining attribute of an entrepreneur who successfully starts things, is they listen to those instincts. But on the flip side, you reach a point as an entrepreneur where your strength becomes your weakness. I remember hearing Grant Cardone talk about this once, how you'll reach a point where your strength, the thing that got you going, becomes your rate limiting factor as an entrepreneur, and it turns into your weakness. And on the flip side, you can take your weakness and you'll reach a point where your weakness will need to turn into your strength. And so for me, my strength is having ideas and having the confidence to thrust my energy into going after these ideas, sometimes by sheer willpower, brute forcing them into the world, like birthing them into the world in a way that a lot of people don't do because they're maybe scared to take the risk, or they don't, they're waiting for approval or validation before they go after their ideas. That's been my strength. My weakness is on the back end of having to manage the thing after it's created and deal with going from, it's easy, I'm really good at going from 0 to 1. I'm not as good at going from 1 to 2. I'm even worse at going from 2 to 10. And what I'm learning is, let's say I'm now at 100 and I'm trying to get to 1,000. That's by far my weakest aspect. Managing lots of people, staying super centered and focused on a decisive vision. And actually, what used to be my strength of indulging those whispers now becomes my weakness of getting distracted by those whispers. And what used to be my weakness of managing long-form macro structures, things that are fairly complex and persist over long periods of time, because I'm impulsive, because I get bored, because I tend to always think, oh, there's a better idea. So that's been my weakness. That has to now become my strength to get where I'm trying to go based on the goals I have for the next year. So having realized this, I realized, okay, just in the last week or 2 weeks, I basically thought into existence this idea of, hey, let me start another Instagram profile because I have this itch to trade stocks, and I'll trade stocks and I'll show people that just by trading stocks, you can build significant wealth. So, I took $100,000, I put it in an E-Trade account, and I was like, all right, once the funds settle, I'm going to start trading stocks. I'm going to start showing everybody what I'm doing. It's a cool idea. Taken by itself, it's a good idea. It does good for other people. It's of value. But this is what they mean when they talk about the good is the enemy of great. It is a good idea. But I have been convicted in the last 24 hours that I have set myself up. It's a distraction. It's something I'm going to have to babysit every day. And so the hard thing as an entrepreneur, and this is just human pride, is once we recognize a mistake, we worry, well, what's it going to look like if I change? What's it going to look like if I shift? Am I going to look indecisive? Am I going to look inconsistent? Am I going to look non-committal? Am I going to look weak? Am I going to look foolish? Right? And at the end of the day, I think what I've realized is that's a self-consciousness that comes from the fallacy, the bias even. I call it like a bias of self, like an egoistic bias to think that everybody's thinking about me and everybody's judging me and everybody's evaluating me. The reality is nobody cares. And even if they care today, 48 hours they're going to forget. I remember once Gary Vee talking about when Prince died. Gary Vee was saying, he's like, I realized I'm not a big deal and that nobody cares. When Prince died, this was Prince. This was a person who was so iconic that he created a gibberish symbol, and everybody around the world knew what it meant. It knew that it was his name, that it was the artist formerly known as Prince, who shall now be known by this symbol. Think about how iconic you have to be to just have a symbol be your name. I mean, could Elvis have done that? Could the Beatles have done that? Maybe. But I mean, we're talking that level of icon. Prince died, and it was all over the news for a couple days. And after 4 days, the news was on to other things. Nobody cared. They were holding vigils, and there were thousands of people gathered outside his house. And the news didn't care after 3 days. And I remember Gary Vee saying, if Prince only got 3 days, nobody cares. I don't matter. No one does. And I think that's where I'm at. It's okay, you know what? All right, I made a mistake. I created this thing, and now it's time to kill my baby. It's only been alive for a couple days anyway, because it's a distraction. But the art, too, is, so first of all, is wasting no time fixing a mistake. But the other piece is, like I said, how do I not throw the baby out with the bathwater? If there's something good that's come of this, how do I create it? How do I find the win-win where I can eliminate the distraction, or I can optimize the inefficiency, but I can keep any value that's been created? So what I'm going to do is, and frankly, actually, I have it's kind of an aside, but it's also directly relevant because it speaks to the opportunity cost. That 100 grand that I was going to trade, I was going to trade on the basis of, hey, how would I handle this money if I was a beginner and this was the only 100 grand I had in the world? This was my life savings. Well, the approach that I'm going to take with that has an opportunity cost because the reality is it's not my only 100 grand. And I happen to know a great investment. It's in crypto, which I wouldn't even recommend for a beginner, but it's been down like 30% in the last 48 hours. And frankly, I've got that 100 grand. I should just go buy this and then it'll probably double in the next 2 weeks. I'm sort of like, what am I, a martyr? I'm like self-sacrificing here. So how do I take this situation and unwind it in a way that's still constructive and valuable and moves forward with what was good? Because what was good about it was that I was going to show people some options around how they could, what they could do with money. I was going to start to establish myself as a tactical financial authority in the market, which is a little bit of a new twist on my brand, where I'm known as kind of a strategic business and strategic finance and strategic business authority, but I haven't actually gotten into tactical finance yet with my brand. And that was something I was interested in doing because actually it'll plant the seed long term of opening up a business line inside of Entra, my main business, where we actually create opportunities for people maybe in the later stages of their entrepreneurial journey to invest, to create legacy, to learn more about wealth, and actually have like a financial education business line for Entra. So that's the vision, that's the good stuff. But the bad thing was that I went and did it in this one-off way that created a tangential distraction for myself. So how do I keep the good and toss out the bad? Well, hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know you can get a free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which will show you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. And there's a special link just for this episode in the description. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. I'm going to close the account or pull the money out of the account, go put it in my crypto thing that I think is going to do a lot better for me, and then lean on the resources and the team that I've built, which is Entra, which is over 100 strong, and say, okay, guys, I think it's a value for me to be putting tactical financial information into the market. How can I harness our content team to help with that? How can we use some of Entra's money to do that instead of my personal money? Because Entra's money is before tax dollars. Entra's money is crowd-funded, pooled dollars of revenue from customers. And Entra's money has to stay in the float anyway as working capital. So how do I kill two birds with one stone and just leverage some of that to do some of the same trading that I was going to do? Because the whole point is it was going to be low risk. So it's not going to be taking risks that I wouldn't feel comfortable taking with the company's money regardless. And use that, and then use the team to turn it into content that, instead of just having it be this orphan Instagram account that Jeff has to babysit, it can now be funneled through the company-wide content and reach hundreds and thousands of people like we already do with all our stuff. I was just being silly from the inception. It was like, why am I doing this myself? Why am I doing this with my own money? Why am I doing this in a non-leveraged way in terms of my own time? Why am I not leaning on other people? I've taken the time to build this team, and then I did the typical entrepreneurial thing where I got distracted and chased a shiny object and listened to a whisper instead of staying focused, instead of keeping all my marbles in one jar and focusing on this one thing. Because what's the value for me of adding, let's say $1 million a month in revenue to Entra, which I can do if I put attention on sales and I put attention on process and I put attention on leadership. Realistically, in the next 60 days, I can probably drive another $1 million a month in revenue for Entra. What's the value in that for me relative to having these little side projects that I'm, maybe helping a few people over here, helping even a few hundred people over here? I can help tens of thousands of people with the main thing, right? So anyway, that's my takeaway. And to kind of sum it all up, there's a difference between a day one mindset and a 0 to 1 mindset. So a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we kind of lump these together. Like, I need to train myself to be a massive action taker. I need to train myself to chase big ideas. I need to train myself to go after things. I need to train myself to not hesitate, right? And that's the 0 to 1 mindset. That's the, hey, if I'm gonna will things into existence that did not previously exist, I'm gonna have to overcome the force of inertia that an object at rest tends to stay at rest by being this massive action taker who jumps almost without thinking, right? Like I always teach the 5-second rule for aspiring entrepreneurs. Like you have a thought, you basically have 5 seconds to go after it. And that's what I did. I had a thought to start this profile, and I gave myself all of about 4 seconds to think about it, because I've trained myself that, oh shoot, if I don't take action in the moment, the probability that I'll take any action at all goes down so much that I have to err on the side of action taking. But that's the shift in discipline. That's the shift from 0 to 1 to day 1. A day 1 company, difference from a 0 to 1 company, a day 1 company and day 1 entrepreneurship is about staying humble, staying lean, staying hungry, and especially staying focused. So 0 to 1 is, I'm not crystal clear on what I'm doing, so I'm gonna consider multiple options, and I'm gonna push hard on things that seem opportune to try to get something to stick. Day 1 thinking is, I'm clear on what I'm doing, and wherever I am, it's the start of wherever I'm headed. And so I need to stay focused, I need to stay linear, I need to stay driven, and I need to stay humble, and I need to not back off in intensity, but I should probably absolutely back off in terms of chasing ideas or pursuing different ideas. The discipline at this stage, the discipline of day 1 thinking in a going concern is actually more about saying no to new ideas than it is about saying yes. But the discipline of 0 to 1 is actually about saying yes to new ideas, I think, more than saying no out of fear or risk aversion. So anyway, that is me admitting my mistake. Like I said, I'm actually going to I'm pulling the money out, I'm putting it into my crypto, I'm going to shift the focus. It'll probably take a couple weeks to spin up. I'll have the content, although it is the holidays, so maybe I'll wait till the first of the year, but I'll have the content team, and I'll also have the finance team obviously fund the account and basically just start leveraging the resources that I have to be able to do the same thing in a lot more efficient way. So that's it. If you've enjoyed this video, I appreciate, first of all, so much your attention that you gave me a marble here for a few minutes. Now I'll give it back to you so you can go do the good work that you need to do. If you've enjoyed this video, I appreciate a like. If this touches you or impacts you in any way, leave me a comment. Feel free to ask me a question. I love interacting with the audience. And if you're interested in more videos, and I'll talk a little bit more about this on the next video, my other mistake, but if you're interested in more videos about what it looks like to drive growth as an entrepreneur, to drive a business from big fish in small ponds to wanting to really contend in the ocean, the massive ocean of opportunity, which is where I'm at right now. That's where this channel is going. And I'd love a subscription. So thanks for your time. I'll see you on the next video. Hey, if you liked this video, then you're gonna love this video. If we wanna have better focus, we need to make fewer decisions. So how do we make fewer decisions in a world that seems to constantly bombard us with decisions? It's okay to make a decision, but don't make the same decision multiple times. Just make the decision once.